So I'll handle it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Startup on the Block. So we're excited to be here this evening. It's Thursday, coming up on Memorial Day weekend, but we're going to get some startup stuff done tonight. Yeah, I just jumped off a Black Men Talk uh, deal where a lot of Black founders, having ideas and trying to figure out how to find their way, and we're going to have um, uh, the guy who runs that, Boris, to come on here in a few minutes and kind of get us going. So I want to give you all a little heads up on what's coming up, and I'll pull up my PowerPoint here and share my screen. Let's see here, but I hope everybody is all excited about the startup world and taking advantage of all these good resources that are out there. So let me see if I can get my screen shared here. So yes, we're gonna have Boris Mostyn come on tonight, and he's down in Miami with the tech ecosystem down there, and so we're looking forward to having on. He has a startup as well, and here he comes. Welcome, Boris, man. You're a hardworking man.
Hey, Lloyd, brother, thank you for having me on, man. Yeah, it's been meetings since 9 o'clock, 9 a.m., back to back, 9 a.m. Eastern, and it's 11 hours later. So it
Yes.
doesn't stop.
Yeah, so I haven't really given you the spill on the startup on the blocks yet, so I'll do that, and then I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit here. I sure appreciate you being on
Thank you
this
for
evening.
having me.
Yes, and so we definitely want to thank our pitch competition sponsors shown here on the screen: Industry Hotel, and the local chambers, and the Small Business Development Center, and Chris, who helps us out with Bantucola to do our live streaming. So coming up in the next couple of weeks here, we're starting off tonight with Boris, and so you're meeting him for the first time like me. I just met him a few minutes ago, and so we'll dig deep and see what all he has going on. And next week, Lakeisha French, she's part of that initiative out of Atlanta, where they're supporting Black and Brown founders throughout the Southeast, and supporting them. And if you look in the newsletter we sent out, there's a link in there that you can actually register to register your startup, or if you have a resource, you can actually register that as well. And Boris, I don't know if you ever met Tom Cheekmore or not.
I've not, no.
Okay, good. But yeah, I participated in a boot camp down in Miami way back in 2016, and Tom, he was running the accelerator or boot camp for Power Moves. I don't know if you remember them. They were out of New Orleans and expanded, to Miami. But I hadn't heard much from him in the past few years. But yeah, Tom he had an exit way back, I think, in 2010. So he's been around a while. So that's what we got coming up, and so I think all of these speakers will be beneficial to the folks out there to learn about the startup journey. All righty. So Boris, basically with Startup on the Blocks, we're almost doing the exact same thing you were doing on that Black Men Talk there a few minutes ago, but we're just trying to get people familiar with the startup ecosystem, make them aware of it, and we want to help them learn the best practices for going from an idea to an MVP, and sounds like you're we'll as you introduce yourself, we'll just do a quick introduction first, and then we'll kind of back up and kind of go over your journey a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Boris Moisten, and Lloyd knows me through Black Men Talk Tech. It's a conference series which focuses on the Black tech ecosystem, and it highlights Black entrepreneurs. And the work that we're trying to do is to change the notion of who could be considered a tech entrepreneur to include people of color. So when you know a black man walks into an investor room, he's not getting the double take because he doesn't look the part, and that's the case. And listen, you could look as far north as Atlanta, with Tope at his company Calendly. His last round before the one he did a couple months ago, was $300,000. He had millions of users, millions of dollars in revenue. No one would give him money. Can he get one VC to give him? He was looking at all their portfolio companies, and he literally said, and I'll quote him directly, "These portfolio companies are all shitty. Why can't I get funded?" And he goes, "Listen, the only thing I could think of is I just don't look the part." And an outlier effect happened earlier this year. He raised $350 million at a $3.5 billion valuation. So that should not have happened to been the case. He should have been able to raise millions of dollars years ago, right? So that's one of the things that we're trying to do in terms of changing the notion. The other thing we're trying to do is introduce enterprise software people to corporations and government agencies, right? Because when we look at wealth growth and wealth creation, and we look at some of the more wealthier founders in tech, most of them are enterprise software entrepreneurs. But one thing that's missing are people of color, particularly Black people, at these innovation summits. There are thousands of innovation summits that go on, and this is where corporations will come and they'll meet technologists to talk about the corporate's innovation pain points. The technologists will come up with some sort of solution and say, I think I could build this. And they have the credibility they can. And then, the corporate will team up with three different organizations, a venture fund, maybe another corporate, and they'll fund this guy $10 million without a company. We need you to build this for us. Right. So I wanted to build the same thing with Black Men Talk Tech and have an innovation summit where we are meeting corporates and government agencies to do the same thing. The other company that Lloyd was talking about was Funder Capital, or Funder.ai. And one of the sort of humbling, but one of the things we've learned since launching Black Women Talk Tech and Black Men Talk Tech are some of the nuances that our people face when raising money, running their companies, trying to get clients and being the Black face of a company, what biases they deal with. One of them is around raising money. It's hard. And it's not only hard for people of color, it's hard for everyone. It's hard. Entrepreneurship is difficult.
Yes.
It is. And the process for raising money is convoluted. It is expensive. It takes a long time, and investors have a difficult time too, right? So we wanted to build a platform that brings both angel investors or seed investors and entrepreneurs together. And it starts this way. We take a little bit of the bias out of the investment process by having an algorithm which reviews the application of a startup applicant who's looking for funding. And if they score high enough, they're put in a portfolio that Funder has. And on the other side of the platform, we have investors that are looking to invest in companies. And we generally have a portfolio or a cohort of companies, and these angel investors, that's how they want to invest. They want to invest in multiple companies at once if they can. Because the notion is this: if you want to have a successful angel investing portfolio, you sort of need like 30 to 40 companies over 2.5 years to really get one or two companies to take off so you can make money on the entire portfolio. If you're going to do one company every 5 years, you're just going to, it's the likelihood of you finding something awesome is going to be low unless you're a specialist and you're going to help them do something specifically and you're looking for something very specialized. So that's essentially what we do. We have an all-in-one platform. It's an investment management platform. So the investor gets on, they find the companies they want. Maybe it's the entire portfolio. Maybe it's only one company in the portfolio. They have a data room where they can do some due diligence on all the companies. They have a chat feature where they can ask the entrepreneurs for information, and then they can sign the investment agreement transfer funds, and then get ongoing performance reports really around traction and any commentary the founders have on a monthly or quarterly basis. Our initial goal was to really, you know, change how funding is being dealt out, to really put the power in the hand of the community so that they could fund their most elite entrepreneurs, their best people. And a lot of the institutions aren't funding us, so we figured we should go out and get our people to fund our best entrepreneurs. So that's what we're working on.
Fantastic, Boris. That's definitely a lot of good stuff there. So, like, so how did you come to realize? I noticed that it's pretty obvious that there's only a small percentage of the Black founders are getting funded, but how you're approaching and making a difference with that. I guess you identified some voids, in that. So how did you come up with the idea for funding?
Yeah, I actually did some research recently to quantify what that void in funding looks like for Black and Latinos.
Mm-hmm.
We're at 32% of the population. We get 2.4% of the funding, which is about $2.5 billion a year. And that's 2.4%. So if you want to normalize our participation in venture funding by normalizing our participation in the population, you got to get to 2.4% to 32%. That's like a 13 times jump, or 13 and a third, 13.333. And that'll get you to, 30. So if you're not 32% of venture funding, what size are you? You're not $2.5 billion anymore. You're $33 billion. So we're being underfunded, in my opinion, by at least $30 billion. Right. So these are Black entrepreneurs, Latino entrepreneurs that make a third of the country that can be doing some good and could be working on the next disruptive idea. So how did we come up with it? Again, my background is in sales and trading. I traded at Citigroup. I also was a banker before that. And I finished my work with Wall Street at Goldman Sachs, where I was an investment manager for very large family offices and for nonprofits, managing their investments, their endowments, their family offices, et cetera. And one of the things I noticed was the way investing was moving. Even when I was trading, I traded a lot for ETFs. And I traded a lot for hedge funds that did indexing. People did passive investing, meaning they like to invest in not in one particular name or stock, but in a group of them.
Okay.
And that sort of reduces your risk somewhat. And it works too when you're doing it with really early stage companies. So the first thing was, listen, we want to help people of color raise funds, but it has to make sense for investors. And we know some of the problems that investors are facing, and we did surveys. We served on investment committees for certain funds or accelerators or pitch competitions, and we saw a lot of their different problems.
Yes.
And the biggest problem was we can't originate fast enough. We can't vet fast enough. We don't have one place for all of our investors, particularly if you're dealing with an angel group, to see the companies that we're trying to invest in a quick way for them to invest. So there's this whole host of issues that they had.
Yeah.
And we were just asking, and we thought we had a great solution for them. And then this is the honest truth, Lloyd. You don't know until you get to market.
Yes.
So I'm big on don't keep your product a secret. Tell everyone and get some help and reach out to people. So that's what we did. And then we asked the companies, what do you want? And then when we launched the platform for the issue, the startups came up first and they all applied. 500 applied in the first 3.5 weeks, and we shut it down. And then from 500, we created our first cohort of 15 companies. Then we opened it up to the investors. 300 investors came on, and several dozens of them decided to invest. And then we figured out what some of our issues were.
Okay.
Some of the investors didn't like that they had to provide private information to prove that they're verified, accredited investors. And yeah, I got cursed out by some people. Like, I'm not giving you that information. You know who I am. You got all this money. This is my venture fund and that. But we operated under a particular rule, Reg D 506C, which
Okay.
says you can't self-attest like you can when you're crowdfunding. You have to verify. What we
Right.
get to do is raise unlimited sums of money, and we get to market as much as we want. But the one pain in our butt was this verification. So what are we doing now? So we rushed out into the market. We hit a wall. We're going to acquire a broker dealer, and we're going to do another type of transaction. A small corporate offering registration, a score, and that's going to allow us to take on any investor, accredited or non-accredited, raise up
Wow.
to $5 million a year for these companies. Downside is we got to do a little bit of filing, and we need to be a broker dealer. So we're going to acquire a broker dealer.
Fantastic, man. That's really a neat journey there. And so you literally leverage your background in banking and finance, and you had some key insights there, and you just went after it. So that's really fantastic. So how did your in building your platform, how did you actually fund it? Did you raise money early, or did you use your own money, or what did you do?
So, like I was telling that gentleman on our last call, Lloyd, if you want to be a startup founder, you have, unless you're just super rich and loaded, and even if you are, the right thing to do is to be super resourceful.
Yes.
Right? And you have to find people that could fill in key roles. So when the idea of Funder started with one of my co-founders, Lauren Washington. She's one of the founders of Black Women Talk Texas. She's one of my business partners on the conference front. And she was taught, I was like, yeah, Lauren, I had a similar idea, and I think this is what we should do. Lauren's background is in marketing. We've known each other for maybe a decade and a half already, right? Her background is with all the big marketing agencies. She's probably covered over 100 different brands. So she knows how to get the word out there, right? She's also a tech entrepreneur, well-respected one. And we couldn't build a platform, though, because we're not the technical people. I had the Wall Street background, right?
Yeah.
And to find someone to give her consultation to work like, it's going to, someone's going to want a lot of equity or a lot of money for advice. Normally it's a lawyer and or a compliance person, right? So now you have, she doesn't have to do that. She has me, and then I have her. She's a marketing person. I'm an investment banking person, a trader. And then, we tried to find a developer, and it was really hard. The first developer didn't do anything. He started, but then he stalled, and then he started to hold the platform for ransom, was hitting us up for money every 2 weeks. Yeah, I swear to God. And then so we were like, all right, you're done, man. We got rid of. Then the second person, we were really trying to vet this guy, and I'm telling you, Lloyd, he was the perfect developer. He was brilliant. He attention to detail. And now we were introducing him to people in our circle and getting their feedback on people who invest in us, would fund us.
Yeah.
And then we were about to extend an offer to him, but then he got a little upset that it was taking us so long. So he went into a rage and cursed me out on a telephone call, and, sent me 20 pages worth of text on like why I'm crazy and why I should have hired him. And then I gave him a call, and I sort of recognized his mental wellness issue.
Yeah.
It's something I've seen before. So when he was having a meltdown, I knew what was going on. So I listened. And then I said, listen, we were about to give you the offer. And then he's quiet. Then he melts down again. And he said, why didn't you effing tell me that? And I said, listen, this is part of the assessment, man, how you interact with people.
Yeah.
And right now, as a startup in the early stage, we're very tenuous. We could fall apart, and the wellness of everyone makes a key difference. So we're not going to be able to work with you now. But in the future, when we're a stable company, if we ever become stable, we could revisit that, because I think you're brilliant. And we had to walk away from that. And I was down on my luck, and someone I give advice to, this guy has a payment platform from France, and he's trying to grow it here in the U.S. And I'm sitting back, and he goes, Boris, I'm talking to this developer for this French company. He goes, what you're working on here in the U.S., giving funding to underrepresented minorities and people who are regionally displaced, is taboo in France.
Wow.
We can't ask people about race. We have no race issues. And we live up to the French ideals. He goes, it's a big lie, but like black men talk tech, black women talk tech, funder to fund people of color, it's taboo in France. I want to help you build it. And that was it. So it's inspiring people. It's not keeping not keeping it a secret. You
Yeah.
can't keep it a secret. You got to get it out there. You got to talk to everybody. It's embarrassing when it doesn't happen, and everyone knows you were talking about it. But that's the only way to have at it. And this brilliant software developer said, "I'm going to build it." And the last piece we added onto it was the payment portion. We partnered with a company called Plaid and another one called Dawala, and we're
Oh,
currently
wow.
accepting our first set of payments right now. So it's been a long road, but we finally completed our first pilot, and we have a team. So it's all about putting together a team. We took money from an accelerator. We're based out of Austin, Texas. So we took some money from an accelerator in Austin, $100,000. We could have done it with or without them, but it was great to have the money.
Yes.
And now we're looking to raise $1 million.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So that's a fantastic heart to heart story, and I appreciate you being so open with that. So you literally found the technical guy through conversation, and yeah, just that person understand what you're trying to do and said, he's gonna help you do it.
You got to inspire them. And
Yeah.
you just got to talk about it. When they see the passion in it, and you get them burning, and they're just like, "Yeah, let's do this." And let me tell you, there were times when he was just tired, and he had some personal hardships, and my other partner didn't care. She was, "I gave you shares. We need to get going, right?"
Hmm.
And things could fall apart, and that's when you got to slow things down, and you got to try to keep the team together, and you got to right. But it's inspiring people to work without money, to work out of passion and love for the project. And investors see that. And when they see that, they that's what they give money to, and or that's what they want to partner with. So be resourceful, people. We were on a call. This other gentleman wouldn't share his company with what his company is. He wants to talk to Lloyd because Lloyd is an AI guy
He's
for
already
censoring.
tried to call me, yeah. But
So
I'll talk to him, and I'll try to get him on the right track. And your IP, you do have to protect your IP, but that doesn't mean you can't talk about what you're doing, because it's just an idea, and it doesn't have any value until you start getting some traction.
get talking.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, man, you've hit so many key points, and so I want to revisit one of the first things you said. You said these corporate innovation programs. You heard me talk about the corporate accelerators, and so you're saying there's some type of innovation summits where these corporate America meets, and they meet people, other tech expert in corporate America, and they maybe give them some funding to help solve a problem for them. It sounds like what similar to the corporate accelerator. They've kind of published what their issues are, and then you kind of suggest what you can do to help solve it. But this sounds a little less formal. So are they still doing these type events?
Yeah, so I'll give you one example. But all these organizations are different. If you look at a company like any one of the large investment banks, so name an investment bank, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley. Every year for the last 20 years, it'll be 21 years this year, Morgan Stanley has hosted the Morgan Stanley Tech Innovation Summit. And what they do is they invite people from all walks of life. So they invite well-seasoned tech experts who have had multiple exits. They invite mid-sized software companies, larger companies like Microsoft, and they invite the guy with the idea but he's technically sound, and it's him and his partner, and an apartment, and a dog, and a whiteboard. And they invite all those people to come and to opine on or to listen to the tech problems that they have. And so, if you could imagine a global company that runs 24 hours a day, like Morgan Stanley, has about 30 different sub CTOs that cover various different divisions,
Yes, yes.
and they all have either customer facing tech, employee facing tech, and then between those two, a lot of different types of tech in between, right? Collaboration, payments, trading, cybersecurity. It could be anything. And then they like, listen, this is our problem here. It could be knowledge management, right? And internal search. And they reach out to these people and they post the issues and they say, well, let's just talk about what solution you have that we could use. And sometimes they look at people who are proposing solutions to problems they don't have yet. And they're just like, oh, yeah. So one of those was Zoom. So like 7, 8 years ago, Zoom came and they were like, listen, we're a new company. We've built this video conferencing platform. It's really cool for Apple computers. What's the Apple software system? iOS or OS?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, that's it. And Morgan Stanley said, well, thanks, but no thanks. Corporate America uses, Windows. We're all on Windows. Unless you're dealing with like a studio or some artist or someone
Yeah, yeah.
making a movie or a picture or music, it's all Windows, man. We can't work with that. But we like what you have, and we may need it in the future. So we're gonna take your software, and we're gonna help you develop this on Windows for a platform that's part of a highly regulated entity. So they sat with him and they did some coding on the Morgan Stanley side. They said, this
Mm-hmm.
is where you need to be. And then slowly but surely, they got to places where it could be compliant for Morgan Stanley. And, almost a decade later, they're now using it. They have 16,000 Zoom meetings a day. And Zoom is $100 billion. I think several months ago it was 40 billion, and now I think it's $100 billion plus dollar company. So that's generally how they work with people.
That's fantastic. We definitely appreciate you sharing that. And so on the last call, there was a gentleman who said he used Bubble to build
Mm-hmm.
out his platform. So
Mm-hmm.
would you kind of help reiterate with the audience, what the no code movements and it's all about and the significance of that?
Yeah. So, when we look at innovation and we talk about, well, what cool things that people are working on, they're working on developer tools. So tools to make software development easier. And one of them is like, a foolproof tool for people who are not even technical, but want to build tech solutions. Um, Platforms, payment networks, whatever it may be, dating applications. Um, Bubble is one of those companies that are on the forefront of developer tools and no code tools as well. So people who are not technically sound but have an idea could master their platform and start to put together an application that works for them for whatever business operation they need to get done. And we talked about the importance of being resourceful. And to one of the gentlemen on that call we were speaking to, one of the gentlemen on the call we were speaking to a couple minutes ago, I told him, he was like, oh, my problem is I need to pay someone to build this, find someone I could pay. And if you remember, my answer was like, you need to be more resourceful. And
Yes.
we have another entrepreneur, JC Alvarez, that talked about he's not technical, but he built his entire platform on Bubble. And he got 3 corporate clients. I believe he raised some money based on that type of work that he's done. And that's where we need to be. We need to be at a place where it's like, if you know what Wix.com is, it's a place where you could build websites. It's the same thing. It's just for applications.
Yes.
And if you want to read and if you want to master this thing, I've spoken to several different entrepreneurs that went through the Bubble.io Immerse program. It's a
Never heard of
program where Bubble coaches you on their platform.
Okay.
So some of these people who I've spoke to said, listen, I'm not a tech person. I'm a layman. I was an English major, and I had this idea, and I couldn't find someone to help me build it. So I sat down and I learned the ins and outs of this Bubble thing, and now I could build any tech platform I want. It gave me a superpower. Now, I'm not being paid to talk about Bubble, but that's the power it gives people. So, like, listen, man, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you would need, an editor to edit your paper. If you wanted to write, you'd need. Today, I don't use an editor. I use a full suite of AI copyright and editing platforms. And I'm telling you, it is really good. And that is the direction we're moving with software engineering. Do I think that we still need engineers? Yes. I don't think everything should be from no code platforms, but in the discipline of being resourceful, if you're not a software engineer, if you can't find one, you need to go learn how to use a no-code platform. Yeah.
That's definitely. So yeah, we've noticed through this journey with Startup on the Blocks that that the no code stuff was really catching on. So it's I think our founders are people with ideas. They think they can't come and be a founder because they don't have that, and so the no code approach is a good approach to get started and validate your idea, so and prove that your idea actually works. And so that's really neat. So how long have you actually been involved in the Black Man Talk thing?
We launched Black Men Talk Tech in 2019 in Miami.
Okay.
Miami was at the time it was an ecosystem that was on its way. And I think it had a few things. It had corporations that were moving there for tax purposes.
Mm-hmm.
They were a little upset that all the engineers they were getting were all architects, right, from all the wonderful universities there. So there had to be some work on the university front in terms of the talent that the universities were spinning out. So I think you've seen a lot of deans or heads of engineering programs change now to be robotic engineers, mechanical engineers, computer scientists.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you'll see over the next several years is a bunch of kids come out of university as software engineers. So we're starting to see a little bit of that transition now. So everyone's talking about Miami becoming a tech hub. And people came to Miami because, particularly from California, they just couldn't take the regulations anymore. Initially, they were going to Texas. Maybe they didn't like Texas politics. I don't know. So they were like, we need to find someplace cool that's like California. They went to Miami. They got the beach, right?
Yeah.
The beach in freedom. So it was the perfect, like in between California and Texas, which has similar tax codes or whatever, or rights for companies, but they don't have the nice beaches like Miami and South Florida has. So you saw a lot of people coming here, and you see them setting up, and then you saw one of the large funds, SoftBank.
Yes.
They launched the first ever fund for Latin America. It's a $5 billion fund. Then they launched a $100 million fund to figure out how to fund Black and Latinos here in the U.S. So, true story, a lot of the senior people at SoftBank, some of the key senior people are African and Latin American. And they were just like, we don't understand why we're not investing in more Black and Latinos. So let's figure this out here in the U.S. Let's put a $100 million bet to build the pipelines. Let's make sure this fund makes some money, and then let's go raise a multi-billion-dollar fund. So I think things are about to change. This is a really exciting time to be in tech as a person of color. Then several weeks ago, they launch a fund, $100 million fund for Miami specifically.
Yeah, I remember
So
saying that. Yeah.
yeah, Marcelo Clary, who's the COO of SoftBank Group and the CEO of SoftBank International, he sold a company called Brightstar used phones he bought here, and he resold it to the Latin American market. He did $10 billion in sales annually. um,
Wow.
and yeah, and so he was like, Miami's where I got my start. I'm not American. I believe he's from Bolivia, and he was just like, I know that there's a lot of discrimination against Black and brown people, and in Miami here where I got my start, I'm going to put together $100 million fund to fund our entrepreneurs here. And that's what he's done.
Yeah, that's really, I didn't know the backstory behind that. I remember seeing about a year ago when they launched 100 million for Black and brown founders. And then
Mm-hmm.
I saw a couple of months ago when they launched the fund from Miami.
Yeah.
And I always thought of SoftBank as a Japanese company, but I guess I was being a little short-sighted, from the robotics part of it.
Yeah, no, you're right. And a friend of mine is actually an advisor with SoftBank Robotics, but they are a Japanese company. Masa-san is not Japanese ethnically; he's an ethnic Korean.
Okay.
So if you talk about someone who knows discrimination, I mean, try being Korean in Japan and try to become part of the fight. They'll let you know. It's like being a Nigerian in London. Those white English kids will let you know you're not really English, you're Nigerian. They'll
Yeah.
remind you. And
Yeah.
that's what it's like as a Korean in Japan, right?
Yeah.
So he knows what discrimination looks like.
Yeah. That's great. And because I was shocked that they led the effort in setting aside funding.
Yes, and I'll tell you why. Because they are a late stage venture capital company that does really large deals. So them doing $1 million deal is not on their radar screen, but they said things are messed up, and if we're not going to start this initiative and put everyone else to shame, nothing's ever going to happen. Most of all, it's just not right. So let's figure out the problem. So what I respect about SoftBank is that they are not an American fund, and they were the first ones to put $100 million down to people. And I don't want to talk crap about any of these other venture funds, but there's just one other fund, and the founders put together a whole $2 million and say, hey, we're going to go nationally. And it was just like, I don't want to say expletives here. I'm going to keep it nice and classy, but looking at them, and then SoftBank just came and shamed them all.
Yeah, I'm glad.
A Japanese investment fund shamed them all, right?
Yes.
And then the other thing that you're going to see now, what's happening, are the LPs who have been asking for diversity to these VCs. The LPs are now saying, listen, we've been asking you to do this for years, and 2.4% is the best you could do when Blacks and Latinos make up a third of the country. That's all you can do. This doesn't work. And then the VCs will say, listen, man, I live down the street from Stanford, right? I can make money, but I feel comfortable investing in these white guys I know. That's what I know. I'm not going to go out of my way. I don't mind diversity. I love it. I want it, but I'm not dying on that diversity hill. That's your problem to solve. That's Black people's problem to solve, not my problem. And I've heard them say things like that. So now what we're seeing on the LP side, as of last year, you heard all this talk and all this crap they were going through, and we're going to do something, and we start looking through the plans, and it was bullshit, right? Just like the other guy who was like, we're going to do a fund, and then you look at this fund, this mega, they put aside $2 million for all of Black and brown people in the U.S. That was their fund. Larger corporations too had this thing where it was like they would only give money to nonprofits. Right. That's the other thing. They see us as like a charity case. So they'll give the nonprofits money. But we were like, what about the entrepreneurs? So what's good about Black women is that Black women are very vocal on Twitter. And Tech Nation is on Twitter. And Black Twitter is on Twitter. And this thing went viral when these women started writing. And Black women are going to save us. And
Yes.
your better half got off the phone with us. I wanted to tell her to stay. I wanted to tell Robin to stay because like they are some of our biggest proponents, the biggest proponents for minorities in general. And what you saw was them call a task and bring out on the mat all those corporations who came up with this fluffy stuff. And they said, no, not again. You're not getting away, right? And this is a shame. Shame on you. They shamed them. So now, as of this year, you're seeing these LPs, even the big corporations, the banks have a community reinvestment sort of investing that they do in funding. And they're saying, all right, the UVCs couldn't do it. We need to fund first-time Black fund managers that are venture capitalists. And a lot of that is happening right now. Major corporations, pension funds, startup companies, they are voting with their dollars. And for the first time ever, I'm seeing Black venture capitalists raise money. And I know some brilliant Black venture capitalists over the last decade who would try to, these guys work for major VC funds. They're older men. They had very successful. They tried to go out on their own. They could only raise like $10 million.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
It's changing today.
Yeah.
I'm seeing $75 million funds close, $150 million. My boys at Harlem Capital Partners, I think they may be honing in on 150 to 200 million.
Yeah, I've been paying a little bit of attention, and so like I've I haven't kept track of all the set aside funding for Black and brown founders, but just from just a quick 15-minute search, I found like $4 billion have been set aside, for Black and brown founders. So, and I guess the trick for us with Startup on the Blocks,
if you could help me with that research on who's setting it aside, or where is it? Is it done by venture capital people, or is it done by LPs looking to invest in venture? It'll be interesting to know.
So like this is mostly corporate America, that I'm talking about, and SoftBank was the only venture fund. But I guess some of these other corporate America has venture funds, I guess. So I guess
venture funds and fund of funds as well.
Yeah. So like for example, like SoftBank started off the 100 million, Google maybe, I can't remember, 110 million, Apple 100 million or so, PayPal, 500 and something million, Bank of America, $1 billion over the next 4 years. Let's see, Western Mutual, 200 million. I probably should have pulled up the spreadsheet.
No, I'll touch base with you later about it, because I'm trying to do some research on that too.
Yeah, and so the challenge, like with Black Men Talk and what we're trying to do here with Startup on the Blocks is how do you prepare a Black founder, and help them learn the best practices and get them prepared to apply or compete in some of these programs where this funding is set aside. So one of the deals we have here in Pensacola is that Generator, they got 200 million from Western Mutual. They got 20 million. Western Mutual set aside 200 million for Black founders. So Generator went after some of that money. They got 20 million. And so I think early next month, they're going to have their first pitching of the graduation of their first cohort. And so I don't know what kind of funding those folks have gotten going through that cohort. But I did hear, what's the peer lending company, Black founder? They got 4 million out of that fund from Western Mutual.
Is it Zerchu? Or
sounds
no. Yeah, there's another one, Pure Lending. It's I think Rain Ventures has financed them too.
Well, this was just recently, like maybe early this month or last month that they were funded. But what the trend is, what I'm seeing is to see. I'm looking at the journey for the startups, and so you remember like the end of last year they had the $2 million pitch competition.
Yeah.
And so those same founders that were in the final round for that, they had been in the program that Morgan Stanley has. I had seen these people in several, at least two, some maybe three programs last year that they participated in. So, in Google's program or whatever, and because in their pitch they talk about all the help they got from like Google with all their AI stuff and whatever, and so when we're trying to communicate with Black and brown people out there to tell them they need to get into this ecosystem and learn the best practices and learn how to compete for some of this funding. Why are you out there trying to do everything by yourself when you got a whole ecosystem here to kind of help you out and teach you the best practices for moving forward?
Yeah, man, you can only bring a horse to water. You can't let him drink. We were talking to the other guy. I'm trying to help him. He's like, I can't tell you what my business plan is. It's a secret. I go, well, how can I help you if it's a secret? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but I think if we just keep on preaching, at some point it'll get through.
Yeah.
Or for some, it'll help some people.
Yeah, I noticed in your so do you think you've actually solved the messaging problem to like recruit people into your Black Men Tech Talk thing or Black Men Talk thing? And so I looked at your messaging and I've been struggling with our Startup on the Block messaging because most people we run into, they think this is only for technical people. But yeah, you just said tonight all these non-technical people, and you're a non-technical person that's a co-founder of a problem. So it's hard to kind of. But I think the other problem we have, and by the way, if anybody has any questions, please either put them in the chat. And looks like Terry Williams has a question on Facebook. How do one get involved? I'm interested in developing a commerce concept for small minority businesses. And so what would you tell Terry? He runs the minority, Northwest Florida Minority Chamber of Commerce over in Panama City, and so how would you answer a question like that?
And what was the question specifically?
If you click on the chat thing to the right there, but it's basically said, how does one get involved? And I'm assuming he's talking about what we were talking about.
Okay, event. I see it here. All right, Terry, let me go to the top.
Well, no, it's on the stage chat. You have to click
the stage chat. Okay. Q&A.
No, all
right.
It's in the chat.
Just chat. All right. Terry Williams, how does one get involved? I'm interested in deploying an e-commerce concept for small minority business. Says e-commerce for small. I don't know. Does that mean it's a platform where small businesses could buy and sell, buy or sell, or both goods and services? Yeah, I think you want to talk it over with some people who have done something similar, Terry. And I don't know what city is Terry from?
Panama City, and so Terry, yeah.
Yeah. So with some of the other ecosystem developers, so like accelerators, they have coaches that are there, and the most important thing is understanding like what type of data your platform needs to take in from the participants on the platform, and then what type of data the platform needs to show out to the participants on the platform, right? And then what other type of calculations or analysis can you use with the data, with all the data that you have on there, right? And that would help you understand a little bit around like what your data model should look like, right? And that should help inform what your platform should look like. But this all sounds like rubbish unless you are someone that is a product manager or someone that is a designer or a developer. So what you need to do is go speak with people that understand this, and so they could help you get familiar with how things should look. And then most importantly, go to places that'll help you build it out. If you want to find a CTO, I would suggest find someone who's passionate about what you want to do that can build it. The second best thing to that would be go to a no-code platform. Bubble.io is one of them, and go through their videos and see how they build simple applications, work on it, call up their hotline, seek help, and continue to perfect what you're working on. And then you have to market the thing. And I think once you get an MVP going and you could actually build something, that's when these accelerators will actually want to accept you. So Lloyd pointed this out earlier. There are on our previous call, there are accelerators for different stages of development. So if you're an idea stage with an MVP, you want to find the accelerators that are idea stage with MVP, right? And essentially, you want to, particularly for e-commerce solutions, for businesses, you want to do some research. You want to find them. You want to chat with a whole host of them, and then you want to see if they'll take you on to help you build out this idea and reach your client base to put together a pilot program to get early adopters.
Yeah. So Boris, let me chime in here a little bit. So basically, Terry, he participated in put an application in for a pitch competition we had a couple of weeks ago, and so as a result of him putting in this application, I sent out an email last week inviting him and all the semifinalists to get involved with Startup on the Blocks, and just responding to that one email I sent out, we will literally get them signed up in Startup Rocket, which walks him through step by step what he needs to do to build out his idea. And so, I mean, it literally lays out all the tasks associated with that. And so the bottom line is, Startup on the Blocks, we're literally trying to provide you the support you need to go from your idea and and get you through this process. And so what we need folks out there to do, just to go ahead and engage. So and get involved and stop trying to be out there and trying to do everything by yourself.
Yeah, if you could find a co-founder, that's the greatest thing. So on our last chat, I think Lloyd probably found someone that was interested in building out APIs and stuff.
Yes.
And there were other guys who were talking, trying to help other people. So I think that's I think now that Florida is opening up, it has been for a long time. Mm-hmm. Events are starting to happen. People are starting to go out again. But even if that didn't happen, a lot of these virtual events are going on. They'll try to show up and meet some people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Boris, you didn't really get a chance to participate. And so in this platform, you actually get the video chat one-on-one, just like, you could, like you and I are chatting here, but you get to chat privately one-on-one and for a few minutes and meet the people in the audience. So we've been using this platform over a year now.
Great.
And it actually keeps track of all the, interactions and, so you get all the data and stuff. But
I got to talk to you about it because Black Men Talk Tech is going to be using Hop On. That's what this is, Hop-In, right?
Yeah, that's
Hop-In.
Exactly.
And we're integrating with our Black Women Talk Tech operations team. So our messaging is probably going to change a little bit. We're going to have Black women helping us tune and fine tune our messaging to get it out. You asked about that a little earlier, and this is the platform that we're going to be using this year. So I have some questions for you around networking, which I'll ask later.
Okay, well, fantastic. So are there any other questions out there? And so let's see here. I'm checking. Yeah. So I don't see any other questions in the audience there, and Lloyd Jr. is posting the ones from Facebook. But the bottom line is all of we're doing everything we can, and we're trying to connect folks with these opportunities that are out there, and so Boris, we're excited to connect with you. Because you kind of knows what's going on down in Miami, and I definitely leveraged the Miami ecosystem to kind of help me get going with my startup, and it really paid off. So do you have like a little quick overview of the Miami startup ecosystem? I'll tell you what I was amazed of down there. The CIC. I'm not sure how it fared through COVID, but like on a night like tonight, Thursday night, there were like I don't know, a dozen.
They had their little pitch night.
Yeah, but they would have a dozen or more meetups going on, in this area, for startup founders or anybody working on any area, and so it was just a really neat thing to see and also all the coding boot camps they had down there was like really, really, really neat. And I tell people the story about my first visit down to Miami to that Emerge Americas. I don't know if you had a chance to participate in one of those. So, I was kind of learning about their ecosystem down there, and they opened my eyes because the last person I talked to, and a guy from Black Tech something, actually was the one that introduced me to the lady, and so I told her I was from here in Pensacola, and what I was working on, and she said, well, we actually we only work with startups here in Miami, but we only work with the ones that are making $5 to $10 million. And so here you got a nonprofit that's supporting startups that's already have revenue, between $5 and $10. And what they're trying to help them do is trying to help them scale out to hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. And so that told me that the ecosystem had help for you at every stage, of your journey.
Yeah, so some things that are unique about Miami, there are a lot of different ecosystem builders there. The Knight Foundation is one of them. The Beacon Council is the other.
Mm-hmm.
I think Florida has a chip on his shoulder for being a southern state and is trying to catch up with some of the northern industrialized or West Coast industrialized, or I would say tech-enabled ecosystems. And you know what? From the state government to the county government to the local municipal government, some of these cities, particularly Miami, but some other ones, they're putting their shoulder to the grindstone with becoming a tech-enabled ecosystems.
Yes.
Or tech ecosystems altogether. They're throwing everything at it. You have the mayor, I think Mayor Suarez in Miami. He's on. He's everywhere. So, and he shared, someone said, hey, what's going on in Miami? He was like, hey, come to Miami if you want to. Well, I'll get you set up. And that one tweet just went crazy with some entrepreneur in California trying to leave. And now they all are coming here, right?
Yeah.
But listen, you remember what happened with Art Basel? Art Basel was a place where people would come to Florida to trade art.
Okay.
And once a year it'll happen. But Miami wanted to be a place where art was being made. Yeah. And after years of doing that, Miami is now a place where they have a whole row of artists. Artists are here. People are not just traveling in and leaving. Artists are here with their workspaces and they're creating works of art in Miami. They're doing the same thing with tech.
Yes.
So it started as a place like for my conference, people are flying in, but now some people are staying, and you have the code camps, you have the universities that are all focused on tech now as well. You have the bigger companies that are employing people. You have people that are launching their own platforms, people that are moving from out of state. And it's going to be interesting to see what the future holds for Miami, a decade from now or after COVID is settled. But if the roadmap is to do what they did for Art Basel and art existing in Miami, if that's what they're trying to do with tech, I think they have a bright future ahead of them. Okay.
Yeah. Fantastic. So we appreciate you sharing that. And we're actually growing our ecosystem here in Northwest Florida. It's just a sparse region, from, the 7 counties, over here in the Panhandle. And so it's hard to get some density. So we started to start up on the block. So on a weekly basis, so folks could have a chance to network and learn some of the best practice of, turn their idea into an MVP.
The last thing I'll say about Miami, because we may have less than a minute here, is that it's uniquely situated near to Latin America or have access to Latin America. That's those when you Emerge America doing those big deals for companies that are doing big deals in Latin America, right? Yes. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the strengths that they have to rest on. But I told you, Bright Star, Marcelo at SoftBank, $10 billion in sales.
Fantastic.
Latin America. So Miami is unique.
Yeah. So let's continue to connect and help grow this ecosystem, because the amazing thing about this platform, it's location agnostic, and so it's got the mobile app as well. And so, yeah, so even on this Thursday night thing, I'm even open to, letting sessions for each city, so people in each city can have their own session, to kind of network and learn, so that's fantastic. All righty, Boris, you definitely made my day, and I really enjoyed your Black Men Talk thing today. And that's something, yeah, you definitely need to do more than once a month. But I guess once a month is better than not at all.
It was once a year. Now it's like I said, okay, we'll do something once a month in major cities around the country. Now it's like you got to do it more than once a month. I'll try, man.
Oh no, don't sweat it, But I think it's I could see the people that participated there that I'm pretty sure they all found it very useful. Okay, well, I'm so glad we connected. Thanks for reaching out, and look forward to connecting and moving forward in the future.
Thank you, brother. I'm happy we found each other. I'm looking forward to staying in contact. I have a bunch of questions I need to follow up with you on, so stay tuned for some email.
All right, fantastic. Take care.
All right, Black Man. You
Goodbye,
too.
everyone. We'll see you all next week. Looking forward
Adios.
to having everybody. All right, bye-bye.